Hey everybody, it's Ruby here today, and today I thought that I would do a haul of books that I bought in Portland and Seattle. As some of you may know, my father and I are a bit of book collectors. My dad likes to collect a certain kind of book, which he likes to find in secondhand shops or thrift shops, and generally likes to find cool covers of like old Pulp Fiction books, which was part of the reason that we decided to go to Portland and Seattle. BookTube was actually the first place that I discovered the bookstore Powell's, which is to be the largest bookstore in the world. I don't know how you would actually measure that, if that would be like by book or by area or what, but that kind of goes to show just how big and expansive the bookstore really is. So we bought a bunch of books there, and then we also tried to go to as many other bookstores in the area as possible. That was one of the reasons that we went. We also just went because we liked the area, we liked the culture, there was a lot of stuff that we had wanted to see. But I thought that this was probably the best like physical evidence of my trip. I did try to vlog some stuff. I do have clips and things that I can put up while I'm explaining things, and pictures and things like that, but in general I didn't film enough to have a big travel vlog, which is kind of the theme of what I had been talking about before, like trying to do that sort of stuff. I think I'm just really bad at remembering to film things, and also I find that a lot of the times when I'm on these trips, I want to be on these trips to be with the people that I'm traveling with, so I don't want to interrupt the conversations that I'm having with someone or really interfere with what's going on in order to like film something, So I think I'm just gonna have to not do travel vlogs really. Okay, so the first book is one book that I got from Megas Books, which is in Seattle next to the university. Very interesting bookstore. It seems like a lot of it was textbooks, so I'm guessing that a lot of people sold and bought their textbooks from the university in that place, which I think is really cool. I don't think that there are a lot of bookstores in my area that necessarily do that, or at least I found that they're usually out of date. Maybe this bookstore was too. So I just got one book that I'd actually been seeing in various stores, but this one was the cheapest, which is the Master and Margarita. It was recommended a couple of times on this channel and in person by a couple of people. It's a magical realism book, supposed to be pretty cool. I don't know a lot about it. All I know is that it's really intimidating. There seems to be a lot of text involved, but, just gotta live with it, The second one I'll talk about, because I got two books from this place, was the Left Bank Books. It is in Pike Place, which is like a touristy area of Seattle, kind of just off of the pier, where you can watch people throw fish and just have a good time. The first Starbucks is in that area. It's not like the first original one, but I think it's the one since like the 70s or something. I tried to go there, but the line was just too long and I knew it would still just be like a Starbucks coffee, so I decided to pass on it. But it's still a really cool area, a lot of interesting bookstores, and this bookstore in particular actually had zines and had a lot of cool punk books, a lot of obscure things, which was kind of bookstores I was looking for. So the first one is very basic. It's Dada and Surrealism, A Very Short Introduction by David Hopkins. So I mostly bought this. I do know a lot about Dadaism and Surrealism, but you can never know too much. And I find that there's a lot of contrasting information about these sorts of movements, because the movement of like these two things were supposed to be very obscure and very odd. So I thought it was kind of cool to read about what an introduction of it necessarily would be, and I thought it would be a good like overview of things maybe I hadn't already known. The second one is The Post-Human Dada Guide, Zara and Lenin Play Chess by Andrei Codrescu. So I don't know a lot about this. It seems that it might be like an actual Dadaist book, or maybe it's about Dadaism. I really just liked the post-human aspect, which I think is really cool, just thinking about post-humanism. And Zara is something like, I know for sure that he kind of pioneered a lot of like the collages and like the writing and art of putting collages together and kind of creating a new, different style of writing. So I wanted to just check out to see what was going on here. And then I just got this one. Can't remember the bookstore that I got this from, but it's A for Activism. Maybe I'll put it down here somewhere as to the title of the bookstore. It was just like a standard bookstore in Portland. I think it was mostly used books, but it seemed like they curated it a lot. Like it was very kind of open and airy and a lot of artsy books, things like that. But not necessarily a bookstore that you can find a lot of obscure things. But what I did find was A is for Activist by Inosanto Nasara. And it's basically like a children's book, but it's a children's book of like socialist movements and things like that. So I thought that was really cool, especially to get from Portland, which I know is, for anybody who's watched Portlandia or just generally knows the politics, is very fitting to find a book like that in Portland. So as for Powell's, so like I said, Powell's is the biggest bookstore in the world, according to them. It is massive. It spans a whole city block and it's 3 stories tall. Each room, there's I think about 4 rooms per level, and each room is divided into like subjects. So you'll get like a pink room and a green room, and these rooms will have like art and architecture, and then another room will be, you know, traveling and history and things like that. I found, I think the purple room, I'll post a picture, is philosophy and psychology, so I spent a lot of time in that. There's a graphic novel section and a rare books section, which was really cool. Children's literature, lots of different things. It was really well laid out. In every like room there were like really nerdy merchandise that like is kind of one of those impulse buy things where, you know, I know it's in Indigo Books in Canada, but I think it would also be in like W.H. Smith in the UK and maybe like Barnes and Noble in America, where you have like end caps and they'll have, you know, notebooks and t-shirts with book covers on them or pens. There was an area, I think it was close to the graphic novels and sci-fi and things like that, where there were Harry Potter and Star Wars merchandise. And then what I also found really cool was in the literature, which was like pretty much a whole section onto itself, because I mean everything is under literature. There were end caps that had like obscure titles, so they would say like magical realism or staff picks, and then within the bookshelves as well there would be staff picks, and they would explain why the staff picks are the way they are. So instead of just like a sticker that said, you know, Ruby recommends, it would say Ruby recommends Harry Potter because, and then it would have sort of a short sentence or two about it, which I thought was really cool. So there's a lot of different information that you could get in to the bookstore, which was really awesome, and we spent 3 hours there. But I heard someone passing by who spent like 3 days there. Like she just came back every day. So pretty cool. So I tried to get books that I found to be more difficult to find in general. So not necessarily books that I couldn't have found elsewhere, but books that maybe would cost a lot more if I did find them, or books that I knew would be kind of odd. So I'm just gonna have it in a random order here. We have Labyrinth, Selected Stories and Other Writings by Borges. He's really cool. I studied Borges in university, and I know Labyrinths is a book that was recommended to me by my cognitive science professor. This book is a collection of short stories that have to do with language and with concepts and thoughts and philosophies. Like it's almost, I'm pretty sure, like a fictional book about certain philosophical ideas. I'm not 100% sure, but I do know that this is like highly recommended and definitely a little obscure. I have this one, which I think summarizes a lot of my interests, which is Perv, The Sexual Deviant in All of Us by Jesse Baring. I just read on the back that apparently he has a PhD, which is really good. Like I've always said on this channel, if you want to get a popular science book, usually get one by someone who has a PhD, just because that means that they kind of know what they're talking about, as long as the PhD is sort of related to the book that they're writing. I didn't, because I think that I'm fairly confident in knowing whether or not this stuff is correct. Just I could look it up myself if I really needed to. And it kind of goes into the idea of deviance, which I had studied as well. And there's a quote on the back, and it says, "I can't promise you an orgasm at the end of our adventure," he writes, "but I can promise you a better understanding of why you get the ones you do," which I thought was really cool. So I think this is going to be a good sort of academic look at some of the things that maybe we find a little uncomfortable. I have Body Language and Social Order, Communication as Behavioral Control, and this is by Albert E. Shefflin, who is a medical doctor, and it has a lot of like images and descriptions on sort of why people shift and gesture and move in the ways that they do, which I thought was a cool, obscure book on embodied cognition in a different sort of way. It has to do with hierarchies and dominance and generally some interesting things. Then I have Why is Sex Fun by Jared Diamond, The Evolution of Human Sexuality. This guy wrote Guns, Germs, and Steel, which is a highly recommended social psychology book about why the Western world dominated or colonized so much of the rest of the world, and why it might have to do with a lot of the technologies they had, but also a lot of the exposures they had to germs and things like that. So definitely an interesting book. I think this one was something that I had found a little bit of a PDF file on. I don't think it was the full book. I think it was like one chapter that like a professor had posted on their website or something. And I think it had to do with something really specific that I can't remember why. But in general, he talks about a lot of different things that I think we have questions about. Lastly, I have The Bookman's Tale, a novel of obsession by Charlie Lovett. This is a book that I will link either like somewhere in my description box, but I had reviewed this as a galley a couple of years ago on this channel and absolutely loved it because it was a great characterization of social anxiety and this guy's sort of ability to come to terms with it and how his love of books helped him understand that. So this was something that I had said that I wanted to pick up at some point, just because I loved it so much and I've recommended it to so many people and I needed a physical copy of it. This is also signed. I'm not really sure why it's signed. Like there's a sticker, which I don't think was Powell's. So some other bookstore had received a signed copy of it and then someone sold it to Powell's, I guess. But I thought that was kind of cool. So I have a signed copy of a book that I had reviewed before it really came out. Alright, so those are all of the books that I got at Portland and Seattle. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. I know everybody loves a good book haul. Comment if you'd like, subscribe please, and I will talk to you guys later.